Hi there, my name is Natasha and welcome to the world of watercolor. Today, we'll create a soft and lively illustration, a flower and a bee step by step. Even if you've never painted before, don't worry, you've got this. Just follow along with the video and your skills will grow with every try. In this lesson, you'll learn how to choose the right watercolor paper, get to know essential art tools, make a light sketch, learn to work with color and smooth transitions, and finally, add expression with line work. In the end, we'll have a charming illustration, a flower and a bee, with delicate watercolor blends and bold lines. It's a great subject for practice, whether you're a beginner or already painting. Before we start painting, let's take a look at the materials. I use watercolor paper of different thicknesses. Thicker paper holds water better, while lighter paper is great for quick sketches. Here are the tools we'll need. Watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is denser than regular paper, usually no less than 185 GSM. It has a slightly rough and porous texture, which helps hold water and creates those beautiful blending effects. It withstands a lot of water without warping. 3 markers with different nib sizes, used for outlining elements in your artwork. Each size has its purpose, from bold contours to fine details. 2 brushes of different sizes. Notice how even a large brush has a pointed tip, perfect for fine lines. The body of the brush can cover larger areas when you need to fill in color. A pencil and an eraser for sketching out your composition beforehand. The eraser helps clean up unwanted lines and make adjustments. Watercolor paints. They come in all kinds, but for beginners, simple and affordable sets work just fine. A white marker, great for adding highlights and final accents to make your piece pop. Masking tape, to fix your paper to the table and prevent it from warping or moving around. A regular hairdryer, handy for quickly drying wet areas on the paper and saving time between layers. A paper towel or cloth, to blot your brush or dab away any stray drops of water. So it's time to start. Take a sheet of paper from a notebook and use sticky tape to attach the sheet to the work surface, so the paper stays in place and doesn't warp during the process. It's a simple step, but an important one. It quietly says, "Something special is about to begin." A moment of silence and focus follows. Soon, right here on this blank sheet, the magic will start to unfold. Painting isn't just about colors and lines. It's about the process, about watching something come to life where there was nothing before. Let's start with a light sketch. We'll outline the flower and the bee. Simple, recognizable shapes. Keep the lines gentle so you can adjust them with an eraser. Don't worry about mistakes. They're part of the process. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments how yours turned out. Your feedback inspires new lessons. And most importantly, don't be afraid to try. Art is a journey, and every step is beautiful. Thank you for painting with me. Now it's time for color, the most magical part. Start with the lightest tones. I usually work from light to dark to keep the colors transparent and clean. Begin with basic washes. You can lightly wet the paper with clean water and apply the first layer of paint. This is the wet-on-wet technique. It gives soft, flowing transitions. Don't worry if the paint spreads a bit. That's the beauty of watercolor. It has a life of its own, and that's its special charm. Once the first layer dries, we add details and shadows. Work in layers. Each new layer adds depth and volume. For example, use a richer shade in the center of the flower and leave the edges softer. When I paint a flower, I'm not just trying to capture its shape. I want to express a feeling. That delicate softness you sense when you hold a petal between your fingers. Watercolor is perfect for that. It's fluid, gentle, unpredictable. I don't try to control every brush stroke. Sometimes the paint moves on its own, and that's the beauty of it. I remember drawing flowers in my school notebooks as a kid. Back then, it wasn't intentional. I just wanted something beautiful on the page. Now, I realize that painting teaches you to observe. Flowers teach patience. They don't rush, they bloom when they're ready, and watercolor is the same. You have to give it time. For the bee, use warm yellow and golden tones. The wings can be left almost transparent, just a hint of color and shadow. The bee, she's my favorite part of this piece, so tiny but full of personality. I love painting the little stripes on her body, adding a soft shimmer on her back. I like to imagine she just flew in from the flower next door. The wings are the trickiest part, almost transparent. I barely touch the paper with the brush. It reminds me of this one summer day. I was painting outside and a real bee landed right on my sketch. She stayed there for a few seconds, like she was checking how I was doing. If you're thinking, I can't draw, just believe me, you can. Drawing is not about innate talent, it's about practice and joy. Follow along with me, take your time, and you'll be amazed at how your skills improve. The key is not to compare yourself to others, just enjoy the process. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments how yours turned out. Your feedback inspires new lessons, and most importantly, don't be afraid to try. Art is a journey, and every step is beautiful. Thank you for painting with me. Once the paint is dry, take fine liners of different thicknesses and outline the shapes. This gives the drawing clarity, expression, and a finished look. A few strokes, and suddenly there's depth and character. If something doesn't turn out right the first time, it's okay. You can always fix it or start over. Watercolor teaches patience and acceptance. There's no rush. Just breathe, relax, and watch the paper come to life under your brush. In these moments, when you're coloring the small details, time seems to pause. You're not thinking about the final result. You just breathe, and your hand knows what to do. It's a little like meditation. Even if the day was overwhelming, these quiet minutes with a brush in your hand bring you back to yourself. And I think that's the real magic of painting. Believe me, anyone can draw. You don't have to be a genius, just start. Your lines, colors, mistakes, and discoveries, all of this is creativity. There is an artist inside each of us. Sometimes he or she is just waiting for you to give yourself permission to begin. The painting is almost finished. The flower and the bee have already appeared on the paper. Just a few final touches left, and then it's time to let it dry. I always pause for a moment here. It feels like a bit of magic is happening right before our eyes. I hope you feel that same spark of inspiration and beauty in something so simple. Thank you for being here. Use a white marker to add light accents. For example, highlights on the bee's wings and on the petals. This brings freshness and brightness to the piece. And that's it! Our flower and bee are complete. I hope you enjoyed the process as much as the result. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments how yours turned out. Your feedback inspires new lessons, and most importantly, don't be afraid to try. Art is a journey.
Hi, glad to see you on my channel. Today we are going to draw bright, juicy strawberries, but not just for fun, but as a postcard that you can then give as a gift or send to someone special. This will be an easy and enjoyable process. Before we begin, let's prepare everything we need. We will need watercolor paints and a palette. You can use an ordinary white plate, paper for watercolor. Also, take a simple pencil and a soft rubber band for easy sketching. For working with paints, I use a regular watercolor brush and a small flat brush. It will come in handy for some effects. From liners, waterproof black and white. Also, we will need a napkin to remove excess water, a glass with clean water, and a hairdryer. It will help speed up the drying process between layers. I secure the watercolor paper with masking tape around the edges. This is to prevent it from shifting during painting and warping from water. Plus, once the tape is removed, there will be a neat white border around the edges. This will add a more finished, neat look to the card. Try to glue the ribbon on evenly, especially if you want to maintain symmetry. Now we move on to the sketch. This is the basis of our future card. I open a photo of a strawberry in front of me and look at it carefully. Pay attention to the shape, curves where the light and shadow will be. Try not to redraw the photo one-to-one, but rather to convey the character and mood. We will have a strawberry a little stylized, lively, and bright. With a pencil, I begin to carefully outline the contour. Do not press too hard. The lines should be light, so that they can be easily erased later. At this stage, the main thing is to catch the proportions and the general silhouette. I move gradually. First, I outline the general shape of the strawberry half. Then I add the tail and seeds, and at the end, light lines to indicate the inner structure of the pulp. When I'm happy with the shape, I take a waterproof black liner and carefully trace over the entire sketch. This will give the drawing clarity and help it to hold against the watercolor background. Even if the paint smudges a little, the lines will remain visible. Allow the marker to dry well so that it does not smudge when you continue working. If you still find it difficult to draw strawberries on your own, don't worry. I have prepared a ready-made outline for you. You can download it from the link in the description, print it out, and immediately start the most interesting thing: coloring. It's a great way to relax and feel confident, even if you're just starting out. Let's move on to the most magical moment, the beginning of working with color. I start with the first light layers of watercolor. This is a very important stage. In watercolor, it is impossible to completely return the whiteness of the paper, so even at the very beginning, I try to leave light areas, especially in the center of the strawberry, where there will be a glare and a feeling of juicy pulp. Remember, in watercolor, we go from light to dark, gradually increasing the depth of color. I take slightly diluted paint and apply the first translucent layer. Don't be afraid to work freely and boldly, but pay close attention to how the water behaves. Somewhere I leave a clean paper. It is these light areas later sound.
And to make the transition softer, I take a clean brush with water and carefully blur the edge of the stroke. This creates a smooth gradient, very characteristic of watercolor. Gradually, I add new layers, a little more saturated, a little warmer, especially around the edges of the strawberries, to create a sense of volume and depth. I work in layers, letting each layer dry before moving on to the next. This way, the paint lays down cleanly and doesn't lose transparency. And while I'm applying the color, I'd like to say one important thing. Each card like this is not just a pretty picture. It is a small gesture of attention that feels warm. An artist always puts a part of himself into his work, his mood, his inspiration, his emotions. And that is why a person who receives such a card will definitely feel this energy. It is not just strawberries. It is your attention, your mood, your "I was thinking about you." Believe me, such gifts are remembered for a long time. Now I'm entering the most meditative stage, the painting. I like to slow down a bit at this point, listen to myself, and just watch the water and paint interact on the paper. I start with soft, light colors. They go on easily, almost weightlessly. It's like the breath of the painting. It is very important from the very beginning to understand where the light will be. Leave the white areas. Don't touch them. This is the light inside, which will then shine through all subsequent layers. Watercolor is alive. It behaves in a new way every time. Somewhere it spreads unexpectedly. Somewhere it dries faster than you would like. But that's the beauty of it. I try not to fight it, but to observe how the paint flows, how the shades mix. If the edge of a stroke seems harsh, I take a clean brush with water and gently touch the border. It's smooth, natural, almost like a dance. As I lay down the color, I think about who this card could be for. It could be a loved one, a friend, a colleague, or even yourself. It's moments like these that make it feel special. Drawing is not just a technique. It is a process in which you put your attention, care, and mood. And what you create is always a little more than just an image. See how the strawberries gradually start to gain flavor. There's volume, saturation, transitions from light to deep red. Leaving the light center, I intensify the edges. This creates the very effect of juiciness that you want to taste with your eyes. Sometimes I just stop and look. I don't rush. It's important to let yourself enjoy the process. And you know what the greatest joy is? To realize that at the end of this work, there will be not just a card, but a small, warm reminder that handmade work is always a story told without words. Now that the main color layers are in place, I'll move on to the details. They make the work complete and liven it up. I take a flat brush, squeeze it well from the water, and gently go over the light center of the strawberry. This allows me to lighten the spots and even out the transitions. I try to keep the light in the center. It creates a sense of volume and freshness. I add a little more saturated red along the edges. The strawberries become more tasty, as if poured with juice. Next, a light shadow under the strawberries. First, I apply a warm gray-purple shade, then gently blur it with a clean brush so that the shadow looks natural and doesn't distract from the main thing. Now, one of my favorite parts is the splatter. I lightly dab the paint onto the brush and gently shake off the droplets onto the paper. This adds vibrancy and dynamics. Immediately afterward, I dry with a hairdryer to lock in what I've gotten and not smudge it. When everything is dry, I take a white liner and carefully draw grains on the strawberries. I try not to overdo it. A few thin dots and strokes to emphasize the texture. With black liner, I slightly strengthen separate lines, tail, seeds, contour, but only where it is really necessary. Don't be afraid to leave something understated. It adds vibrancy to the drawing. Each of these steps is like a stroke in writing. It's as if we are finishing a postcard, completing it with care and attention. It is no longer just a drawing. It is a small work in which the soul is invested. Now I'm looking at the drawing again carefully. Somewhere I'm slightly emphasizing the contours with a marker, adding the final touches. This is not about technique, but more about intuition. I feel where I want to add emphasis and where I want to leave air. And yes, I want to say an important thing. I am well aware that the first time you paint a watercolor may not turn out the way you imagined. Sometimes watercolor flows in the wrong place, somewhere the hand trembles, or the colors do not lie down as desired. It's completely normal. Drawing is a process, and with each new drawing, you become a little more confident, a little freer. The main thing is to keep going. Even if something doesn't work out, it's an experience, not a mistake. I myself very often redo, try again, look for new approaches, and every time I find joy in it. Don't be afraid to try again, because one day you will look at your drawing and feel, here it worked. Until then, just draw with pleasure, with interest, with an open heart. The final touch remains. Before removing the sticky tape, I warm it up a little with a hair dryer. This will help to carefully remove it without damaging the paper. Now I slowly and carefully remove the tape, and a beautiful white frame appears. I love this moment. The work immediately looks like a finished postcard. That's it. Our strawberries are ready. I hope you enjoyed the process and felt inspired. Let this postcard be a reminder of how nice it is to create with your own hands. If you like this video, put a like. I will be very pleased. And be sure to subscribe to the channel to not get lost and get even more useful and cozy videos about drawing and creativity. Thank you for being with me. See you in the next videos.
Hi, my name is Natasha, and welcome to the world of watercolor. Today, we will create a bright, life-giving illustration of delicate lilac blossoms, step by step. Even if you have never painted before, don't worry, everything will work out. Just follow the video, and your skills will grow each time. In this lesson, you'll learn how to choose the right watercolor paper get to know essential art tools, make a light sketch, learn to work with color and smooth transitions, and finally, add expression with line work. It's a great subject for practice, whether you're a beginner or already painting. Before we start painting, let's take a look at the materials. I use watercolor paper of different thicknesses. Thicker paper holds water better, while lighter paper is great for quick sketches. Here are the tools we'll need. Watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is denser than regular paper, usually no less than 185 GSM. It has a slightly rough and porous texture, which helps hold water and creates those beautiful blending effects. It withstands a lot of water without warping. 3 markers with different nib sizes, used for outlining elements in your artwork. Each size has its purpose, from bold contours to fine details. 2 brushes of different sizes. Notice how even a large brush has a pointed tip, perfect for fine lines. The body of the brush can cover larger areas when you need to fill in color. A pencil and an eraser for sketching out your composition beforehand. The eraser helps clean up unwanted lines and make adjustments. Watercolor paints. They come in all kinds, but for beginners, simple and affordable sets work just fine. A white marker, great for adding highlights and final accents to make your piece pop. Masking tape, to fix your paper to the table and prevent it from warping or moving around. A regular hairdryer, handy for quickly drying wet areas on the paper and saving time between layers. A paper towel or cloth, to blot your brush or dab away any stray drops of water. So it's time to start. Take a sheet of paper from a notebook and use sticky tape to attach the sheet to the work surface, so the paper stays in place and doesn't warp during the process. Before I start, I lay out everything I will need. A palette of watercolors. I've pre-selected the shades I want to use, from delicate light lilac to deep dark purple. A few greens for the leaves, some reddish accents. Nearby, black and white markers for final drawing, a brush of medium hardness, a glass with clean water, and a napkin. You can't go anywhere without it. I start, as always, with a pencil sketch. I don't strive for accuracy. It's just a sketch, a guide. With light lines, I mark where the inflorescences will be located, where the leaves will lie. I do not draw each petal. I only indicate the general shape, movement, rhythm of the branch. This stage is important. It sets the composition, but at the same time leaves room for spontaneity. When the sketch is finished, I pause. It is a moment of silence. I check the composition with my gaze. My mind is already imagining how the colors will lie, where there will be light and where there will be shadow. In front of me, a thin grid of pencil lines, not yet a living plant, but it is about to start breathing. Lilacs are a special motif. Many artists love it precisely because of the way it allows you to work with translucent layers. It has no sharp contours. The shapes seem to dissolve into the air. It is a flower of light and nuance. Each inflorescence has dozens of tiny petals, and they all reflect light in their own way. Watercolor is perfect for capturing this layered, fragile beauty. I start with the lightest touch of color. I dilute a light lilac, almost watery shade, and apply it to the areas where the flowers are to be. Here it is important not to rush. The first layer should remain airy, almost transparent. It only hints at the shape, like a light haze. Watercolor lies down softly, spreads out, and I let it do so. I don't hold it back. Let the paper breathe. For the leaves, I dilute delicate green. It should be as light and clean as lilac. No heavy spots, just the base tone. The color looks flat so far, but I know this is just the beginning. This stage is like a prologue in music. It sets up the viewer, creates a general feeling, but it doesn't tell the whole story yet. Next, it's time to add tonality. I take a more saturated lilac and start putting spots on the petals. Not all at once, only where there are shadows, where flowers overlap each other, where I want to show depth. This is not the final color yet, but there is already a volume, a sense of form. Flowers begin to pop out of the paper. If you're thinking, I can't draw, just believe me, you can. Drawing is not about innate talent, it's about practice and joy. Follow along with me, take your time, and you'll be amazed at how your skills improve. The key is not to compare yourself to others, just enjoy the process. Now I take a thin marker. This is a special moment in the work, the transition from soft, fluid watercolor to a more defined, meaningful line. Line is what connects the abstraction of color with the concreteness of form, giving the work rhythm and structure. I start carefully tracing the contours of flowers and leaves, but I do it not everywhere, but only where it is really necessary to emphasize the form, to direct the eye, to accentuate details. It is important not to overdo it. The line should be light, lively, almost a breath. It should not overwhelm the watercolor, but on the contrary, work in dialogue with it. I try to make it hint rather than assert. Somewhere it is interrupted, somewhere barely noticeable. This gives the image airiness and preserves the feeling of light.
A marker requires precision and focus. Unlike watercolor, it doesn't give second chances. A wrong line will remain forever, so every movement must be deliberate. I work slowly, carefully, as if listening to the drawing before continuing. There is something special about this process. The balance between the freedom of intuition and the need for strict control. It is at this delicate juncture that the real pleasure of the work is born, when each stroke becomes a conscious choice. Back to color. This is a special stage, the moment when the work begins to acquire depth and saturation. Now I am adding more active accents, intensifying the sound of the composition. On the petals, I introduce warm lilac shades. In some places, I allow myself to go into reddish halftones. This gives the image liveliness, warmth, and nuance. The color begins to play, becomes more complex, richer, as if coming to life before my eyes. At the same time, I work on the leaves, where denser, darker green areas appear. I carefully follow the light shading, trying not just to darken, but to sculpt the form through tone and color. It's as if I'm building a volume out of light, as if I'm modeling a sculpture, but instead of clay, there are only transparent layers of paint. This stage is like breathing in painting. The work ceases to be flat, decorative. It begins to sound on another level. There is a sense of depth, multi-layeredness, as if behind each stroke there is a story, movement, space. And here it is especially important to keep the balance, to strengthen the expressiveness, but not to lose the lightness of watercolor, transparent layers of paint. You can learn to draw at any age. It is not a talent given from birth, but a skill that develops with practice, attention, and interest. The main thing is to start. Do not be afraid of mistakes. Do not compare yourself with others, and allow yourself to just sit down and try. Drawing is not about the result. It's about the process. It is a way to slow down, to hear yourself, to feel the moment. Many people discover painting as adults, and that's when it's especially valuable. It is not only creative self-expression, but also a way to restore inner balance, meditation, and color. And if there are children or grandchildren around, it can become a wonderful joint occupation. Drawing unites, teaches to observe, fantasize, share impressions. Together with loved ones, it turns into a warm ritual filled with joy and real live communication. And it doesn't matter where you start. With a simple sketch, a watercolor spot, or a single sprig of lilacs. The main thing is to let yourself be a student, to let yourself create, because every stroke is a step towards something new, and this path is open to everyone. Now it's time for the darkest accents. These are the final touches that give the work depth and completeness. I take a dark lilac, almost plum shade, and add a little blue, cold, calm. With these colors, I begin to intensify the shadows in the depths of the inflorescences, exactly where the petals are layered on each other, where the light almost does not penetrate. These rich, velvety shadows are born. They do not just darken, they add a sense of space, give volume, as if they let coolness and silence into the work. On the leaves, I put a dense, saturated green, thick but not deafening. I try to work carefully so as not to overload the composition. These shadows should not shout, should not draw attention. Their task is to support the light, emphasize the form, create balance. Everything should be in harmony, cold and heat, light and shadow, contrast and softness. It is in these nuances that integrity is born. The work begins to breathe, to sound like a completed work. And it is here that it is especially important to feel the measure, because an extra stroke can break the fragile balance that I have been working towards throughout the work. We're almost done. The lilac branch has come to life on paper, from the first light sketches to the final accents. Now you know how to create a watercolor drawing step by step, how to outline the shape, build color, work with light shading, and add expressive details. I hope you felt that this process is not only about technique, but also about pleasure, observation, and the special inner peace that comes with drawing. If you like this lesson, check out our channel. Here you will find a lot of interesting and useful videos. There are materials both for adults who want to develop their creative skills and for children, simple, inspiring lessons that are suitable for family creativity. The final stage is the most meditative. I begin to fill the bunches of lilacs with small flowers one by one. This is painstaking work, requiring patience and attention to detail. Each small flower is like a separate stroke of mood, like a link in the overall pattern. I try to vary the shades. Somewhere lilac is lighter, somewhere deeper, with a warm or cold cast. In this way, the inflorescences gain volume and begin to sound vivid and natural. This stage takes time, but it creates a sense of completion. The bunches become denser, more saturated. There is a rhythm, a filling. The work no longer needs anything extra. It is ready, and there is a special joy in it, to see how a whole world is born from a sketch, from stains and strokes step by step. And finally, the final detail, drawing in white and black marker. It's like a flash of light and shadow. With black, I go over the most important lines, sometimes adding light strokes inside the petals. With white, I put accents, highlights, hints of light that falls on the edge of the petal. These points make the whole work alive. They do not dominate, but they create completeness, like the last chord in music. That's it. The drawing is ready. The lilac branch is finished, and now it lives on paper. Light, bright, full of color and mood. Thanks to everyone who was with me and watched this video till the end. I hope you learned something new, and most importantly, felt inspired. If this video was helpful to you, I would really appreciate a like, comment, and your support. But most importantly, let it be the very impetus for you to pick up a brush, to try, to experiment, to just start. After all, painting is available to everyone, and let your creative path will be joyful and exciting. See you in new videos.